His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Sweden, His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Finland, His Excellency, the First Deputy Prime Minister of Poland.
If you want promises, go to India. If you want results, go to China. Harsh? Maybe. But it's also the truth that defines the modern story of Asia's two biggest nations. Both are ancient civilizations with thousands of years of history. Both have massive populations and over 1.4 billion each. Both talk about greatness, pride, and potential. But only one of them actually delivered. Let's be honest, one built the world's fastest and longest high-speed rail system in a little over a decade, sent astronauts to space, and became the global factory that powers everything from your iPhone to your fridge. The other one, still struggling to build basic toilets. It's like watching two students start from the same classroom. One quietly works hard, does all their homework, and aces every exam, while the other keeps bragging about how smart he is, even though he keeps failing. So, let's dissect the differences and results we see between these two giants. Let's start with the quality of life. China in the 1980s was relatively poor, chaotic, and rural. So was India. But while China lifted over 800 million people out of poverty after 1980, the largest achievement in human history, by the way, India's numbers still look embarrassing. Around 230 million Indians still live below the absolute poverty line today, with another 700 million if you include multidimensional poverty. That's almost 1 billion people in some form of poverty. In rural areas, poverty and malnutrition are common realities, not just statistics. China's Human Development Index stands at around 0.79, placing it in the high human development category. India, 0.63 and stuck in the medium range, roughly the same level as sub-Saharan African nations. No offense to sub-Saharan Africa, but that's not a good comparison. Access to clean water, electricity, and healthcare, these are basic things in China. In India, they're often considered luxuries. According to World Bank data, nearly 16% of Indian households still don't have access to toilets. Imagine living in a country that boasts about being a tech superpower, but millions of its people still have to relieve themselves outdoors. And keep in mind that their definition of toilet is probably exaggerated. Meanwhile, China has built entire smart cities, with modern apartments, clean streets, and functioning public services. And here's the best part. They did it without endlessly bragging about it on social media. In fact, other people do the bragging for them. I'm sure you've seen the tourists who visit China and are so amazed that they post it on YouTube and TikTok. Whereas when they visit India, they often video it for the opposite reasons, such as being scammed, assaulted, or just for filming the mountains of trash and litter. Now, let's talk about infrastructure, the bones and arteries of a modern nation. China has built over 40,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. That's more than the rest of the world combined. Their trains cruise at 350 kilometers per hour, linking even remote regions like Tibet to major cities like Chengdu and Beijing. In India, high-speed rail is still a PowerPoint presentation dream. They've been talking about the Mumbai-Ahmedabad bullet train since 2017, but it's still nowhere near finished. In fact, Japan, the one helping fund and build it, is quietly frustrated because the land acquisition, corruption, and endless bureaucracy have turned the project into a global joke. China builds entire cities in the time India argues over paperwork. Chinese highways are world-class, with clean rest stops, lighting, and efficiency. In India, potholes have become death traps, and in many cases, the old colonial-era British trains are still in use. According to India's own transport ministry, nearly 150,000 people die every year in road accidents, many due to poor infrastructure. You can literally measure the difference between the two countries by how long it takes to travel 100 kilometers. In China, an hour. In India, maybe 3 or 4 if you're lucky and the cows aren't blocking the road. Let's move on to manufacturing, where the real power lies. China doesn't just make things, it makes everything. Electronics, steel, textiles, cars, drones, solar panels, you name it. It's not called the world's factory for nothing. In 2024, China's manufacturing output hit $5 trillion, dwarfing India's $450 billion. That's a tenfold difference. Embarrassing for India, not gonna lie. Companies don't just go to China because of cheaper labor. They go because China delivers fast, reliable, and at scale. The logistics, the supply chains, the trained workforce, it's all there. Meanwhile, India keeps promising to replace China as a manufacturing hub. Apple tried moving some iPhone production there. The results? Constant quality issues, labor protests, and laughably low output compared to Chinese plants. Even Indian car manufacturers depend on China for parts. That's the irony. The country that dreams of Make in India still imports components from the one that actually makes. And worse for India, it considers China as its rival, yet still buys parts from China. China built entire industrial cities like Shenzhen from scratch. India still can't finish basic factory roads in some states without a dozen scandals popping up. And when you compare leadership, the difference becomes even clearer. Under Xi Jinping, China has consolidated its political power and focused on long-term strategy instead of short-term slogans. Xi has pushed for massive investments in research and development, spending over 2.6% of GDP on innovation. China now leads in electric vehicles, renewable energy, 5G, and rare earth processing, all the technologies that define the future. Tesla may have started in the United States, but it was China that, really turned electric vehicles into an everyday product. Chinese companies like BYD and CATL now dominate the global battery markets. China controls over 60% of the world's rare earth production, which are the raw materials needed for electronics and clean energy. That's not just luck. That's long-term strategic planning paying off, plain and simple. Now, just take a look at Narendra Modi. He talks a lot about Make in India, Digital India, and Clean India, but honestly, most of it remains just that, talk. Manufacturing hasn't boomed, digital infrastructure is still patchy, and as for cleanliness, well, India still struggles with open sewage, litter-filled streets, and yeah, a shocking lack of toilets. Now, let's get geopolitical, because this is where the gap turns into a canyon. China is a superpower, not just in name, but in reality. It has leverage over global supply chains, commands influence in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, and plays a central role in institutions like BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. India, on the other hand, still acts like it's auditioning for a spot at the grown-up table. The West flatters India with pretty words. The world's largest democracy, strategic partner, counterweight to China. But when push comes to shove, they drop India faster than you can say, Make in India. Remember when Trump hosted Modi at the White House and called him a great friend? A few months later, he slapped 50% tariffs on Indian goods. That's how much those friendships are worth. China doesn't beg for validation, it commands respect. Countries are naturally drawn to trade and be friends with China because of its economic and geopolitical prowess. The US might not like Beijing, but it has to deal with it. Because China is the largest trading partner for over 120 countries. India? Barely 30. While China builds ports, railways, and digital infrastructure across Africa, the Middle East, and Europe under its Belt and Road Initiative, India still can't build proper roads within its own borders. Now, let's be fair, India does have potential. It's a democracy, it has a young population, and it has vibrant tech talent. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Potential means nothing if it never turns into performance. India's government spends more time making grand announcements than actually finishing projects. Every year, you hear the same promises: a digital revolution, $5 trillion economy, world-class infrastructure. But every year, those promises just get recycled with a new slogan and a new logo, and the Indian netizens eat it up and call India the next great superpower. Meanwhile, China just keeps working, quietly, relentlessly, efficiently. It doesn't waste time arguing about politics, religion, or nationalism. It focuses on results. That's why, today, China's GDP is 5 times larger than India's, and its citizens live, on average, 10 years longer, even though both countries started in similar positions in 1980. One country talks about vikas, or development. The other one didn't talk about it, they just did it. And that sums up the video. If you want promises, go to India. If you want results, go to China. That's not arrogance. That's just an observation. And if you found this breakdown interesting, hit that subscribe button and join me for more deep dives like this. Because we talk facts, not fairy tales.